started. Okay, and we got a couple new entries. Let me get those in here. All right, cool. So welcome everybody to day 2 of our 3-part Mastering SkyGlass training. And sorry, I got some new people coming in. I just got a little distracted. So let me start again. Welcome again to the 3-part Mastering SkyGlass live Zoom training. I am your host, Goa, of course, the creator of the SkyGlass application and platform. And yesterday we did some sort of basics, and we covered a lot of the basic level features, the sort of core foundational stuff, including the essential handles of what you need to kind of always keep at the ready. Does anybody want to give that to me? Maybe I'll do a race in chat. Drop in the 3 things that you need to do when you update to a new Zoom level or change your home location. What's the go-to things to do? I'll give you a 10-second clock here. All right, we got to adjust relative height. Excellent, Lance. Perfect. Master is talking about Washington. Well, you guys can check the chat for that. All right, so again, if you change your Zoom level or change your home location, do any kind of an update, changing modes, first thing you really want to do is adjust that height adjustment slider so you make sure you're seeing the top and the bottom end. And then you can, second thing is adjust the aircraft scale so you kind of optimize to your format, your screen, your eyesight, and all that kind of stuff. And then the next thing, if you got traces on, you can always adjust that. SkyGlass is really, you know, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. A lot of people sort of expect, because they're normalized by the market, to just have all that stuff taken care of for you and kind of shoot for the middle and just leave it as is. I'm such a, I want to tweak and change and have it, have things customized. So I build in a bunch of those kinds of handles for people. And hopefully, you don't need them, and the sort of the defaults are usable. But anyway, there's so much customization, I guess, in SkyGlass. Anyway, so we talked about the essential core concepts. I talked about the difference in loading mill mode versus standard mode, and really limiting your traffic, which is the limiting your search radius and the loading potential when you're in standard mode. We did a little bit on watch lists, talked about changing your home location, did a little bit of cool database work, and we talked about the new saved setups feature. So before we get rolling, any questions about stuff we covered yesterday to sort of clean up any holes in the knowledge, and that way I can just move forward fresh. Any questions? Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Can you just re-show? I tried yesterday. I was going to go back and watch it. I see you have it posted now. But on the watch list, when you were searching, I tried putting in department, I tried putting in DPT, and I could get nothing. No, so I don't know what I don't have clicked right.
Okay, not a problem. We can do that. So one request for a little database search review, no problem. And then we're going to do the flight history reports. Anything else? Okay, good. All right, so we're looking good. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I think we got everybody in the door. All right, so here we go. Where is, there it is, share. And SkyGlass. All right, everybody see that okay? Thumbs up, perfect. Okay, give me one moment to just adjust my user interface here so I can see everybody. Okay, great stuff. And for those of you who have your cameras on, so appreciate your being visible. And for those that don't, feel free to turn it on if you have one. If not, that is okay. I think SkyGlass also has, or I'm sorry, not SkyGlass, Zoom also has like a thumbs up, thumbs down kind of, you can do emojis. So feel free to do that as a response as well. All right. And I will tell you, we had a few bugs that showed up yesterday, and I patched all the bugs. So in the next version, all those things will be done. I had 4 on my list. Anyway, All right, so let's cover the database search real quick. So we got to load the database first. I'm going to adjust the UI a little bit. Let me ask you guys this while we're waiting for this thing to load. How often do you do the scaling of the user interface? Is that a useful function? Lots of heads, nodes. Maybe, Ren, kind of, maybe once you get it set, it's all good. All right,
I don't use it like every day all the time, but there are times that you want to see the higher aircraft. So yeah, I think it's useful.
Not the height adjustment slider. What I'm talking about is the UI scale, this guy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I use that. Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes
Good,
I need to
good,
see
good.
it bigger, and then sometimes I just want it kind of out of the way, but still visible.
Oh yeah,
Perfect.
yeah, yeah.
Especially on smaller devices.
Yeah, for sure. Good, good,
And-
good.
And there's a missing piece, it seems to me, like on the watch list. It'd be nice to be able to shrink that so that it takes up less space, but still contains pretty much the same information. And maybe other things too. I don't know, just a separate sizer.
Okay. Well, Richard, you got the gold star for the best idea yesterday, so I'm going to listen to you.
Oh, well, thanks.
So when we get into it, we'll towards the end of class, let's cover that again because I'd like to hear where the soft spots are, because there is a fair amount of stuff you can do, and I'll cover that today in the watch list as well. But let's get into the database. So, Teddy, what were you trying to search on? You want to just do a department example?
Yep, that's what I was trying.
Okay. Okay. So for searching, the first thing you really got to do is make sure that you're searching on the right thing, right? So we've got the ICAO, which is the hex code, registration, type. That's not what you wanted. You got to do owner operator. The other thing that is can get you stuck is it's all case sensitive. Okay. So department and most of from what I've seen, and again there is a mix. The owner operator, it seems like it's whatever they put in the system or put in the application sort of goes. So sometimes they're capitalized normally, sometimes they're all caps. Often they're all caps, but you got to search on kind of both. I have not done an update to make it not case sensitive, but right now it is. So you got to sort of think about that. So anyway, let's drop in department. And we'll do a search. Are we set up correctly? Yes, we're on our owner operator. We are, hold on a second, sorry, I'm getting a phone call. Turn that off. All right. So we've got the search parameter put in correctly. We are definitely searching on the right field. We want to have partial match on. Okay, if you turn that off, then it's only going to match exactly. We don't want to do that. We want to kind of have a broad net. And we don't need to show the show only or the country filters. And we want to limit the returns. That's always a good practice to start. All right, hit search. Bada bing. There you go. So as we were thinking, we're looking for department, just to expand a little bit. We'll get different responses if we put in the full name. So let me put in DEPARTMENT. Do a search. And so now we're going to get U.S. Department of State, Department of Energy. But again, sometimes they're going to have Department of State spelled out. Sometimes it'll be U.S. DEPT of State, right? So to really do the OSINT dive into this, you need to kind of think about and just kind of play around, do some searches, kind of figure out what's in, what's not. And then again, what I like to do is, if you didn't notice, you can sort on these different fields. So I like to sort by owner operator, just so it kind of gets them all correct or easy to see, and then kind of scan through. We did max the returns out, so the next step would be, bumping this up to like 250, limit returns, clear, search again. We'll probably max out the 250 as well. Yeah. Anyway, so you keep building that up until you get everybody that you want, or until you find something you're like, oh, I'm in Arizona, I really want AZ Department of Safety. Click on that to put it on your clipboard, drop it into the input, clear, search again. And again, even here, we've got State of Arizona and then also Department of Public Safety. So, there's a fair amount of variation because this is definitely a human entered database, right, and maintained. Most of it's coming from the FAA, from their, in FOIA requests, things like that. Sometimes this is sourced in other ways. It's crowdsourced. It's not bulletproof. So anyway, if you still have issues and you can't get it to work, then we can go offline about it, and I'll give you some one-on-one coaching. Okay? Did someone have a question?
Got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
On the right of watch list, I see almost like a stop sign with a dash. Is that to take one of your selections out?
Yes.
Okay.
So let me bring this back in. So we've got, if you expand it fully, so some of these things are new in the latest version. The sorting is new. I've got it, nicely. Columns are, easy to read. It was all kind of jumbly before. Anyway, so this will tell you if it's on the watch list, what watch list group it's in, and then if you want to remove it from the list. So it's kind of like pruning the list, right? So what's an example of that? Well, sometimes you're going to, have something that pops that's like, what? This is a good one. Here, let me do this. Clear. I'm going to search on weather. This is where we found some of these weather seeding operations, the cloud seeding. Do a search on that. And then I'm going to sort by owner operator. We see kind of get them. They're nice. So like Dan Weatherford, he's not obviously a weather, cloud seeding guy. So if you want to pull that from the returns, you just click on the minus sign and it'll pull, clear from just the returns that you're. So again, the goal here is get your return window nice and tight and then add them all as a group, right? Okay, good. Awesome. So we got a lot of these sort of like this person's weather B obviously popped on weather, but doesn't account for the ones we're really looking for, which are like South Texas Weather Modification LLC. Right on the nose, huh? With that one. Okay. Yeah, great question. Perfect. All right, you can see I've already got a lot of these guys on my weather modification. All right. Okay, so covered that question. Great. All right, so getting back to the agenda for today, we're going to cover 3D airspaces. We're going to cover the animated weather overlay. So this is kind of the enhancement to the pro level enhancement to the weather overlay. We're going to talk about the Overwatch system, which has sort of two parts. There's the geofencing, and then there is the watch list alerts, which kind of come with that. So let's get into it. All right, so this is going to be most useful if you're in standard mode, and mainly because when you're in mill mode, you kind of want to have this sort of widest perspective, right? But for the examples that we're going to be running today, I would prefer to do it in standard mode because with the airspaces are quite heavy graphically and data-wise. They're kind of like traces, but to the next level. And then the Overwatch, obviously, we're going to be, the most common use case is going to be, what's my AO? What's my area of operations? What do I want to monitor? Which is kind of right around me. So we'll talk about those to build up those airspaces. So anybody want to drop in the chat? I already see Tacoma. Maybe you were anticipating me. What is like a good local area for you that's got a lot of probably a Class B airspace, nice and complex, so we can just kind of see all the variations for it. Anybody have a request? I know we got SeaTac in here. I'm in the Miami area, through South Florida-ish. Miami is our Class B. Miami's nice because it's got let's just do that. Miami's nice. I was
going to say DFW.
Dallas-Fort Worth is good, and there's a lot of military around that too. So let's do that because I want to kind of cover the full spectrum. So DFW is a great one. All right, so I'm going to drop into standard mode by clicking off the military icon. I'm going to turn off my favorite setups because I don't need to see that. We got a new person. Let's drop them in. All right. So we got DFW is the location we want. Dallas-Fort Worth. Excellent. So just kind of best practices for me, I like to get the search or the location dialed in first. Then my next step is the map zoom. And after years of use, Midway is kind of a good sort of statewide, 100-mile range, which is going to be fine for us today. Let me ask you guys this. How's the map viewability, or should I switch to a different map style that's a little bit easier to see? I like the high contrast when we're doing the showing the geometry, so we'll keep it here. Is that okay? All good? All right, good. Okay, good. So we've got DFW center stage here. I'm going to widen up my camera just so we can see it most easily. All right, so the next thing you'll probably want to make sure, if you're in a pro level, let me make this larger. This is the icon. Oh, you know what? I'm so sorry. Let me turn on. There we go. Yeah, there we go. This is the icon for the pro features. Okay, if I turn that on and off, you can see we get this new vertical that pops out to the left of the auxiliary button stack. And these are our pro level features. So there's sort of two main ways to render airspace. Okay, there's the long way and the short way. The long way is to do it by different airspaces. This was the first implementation of SkyGlass or of Airspaces, and I was getting this data from the FAA. They've open sourced all their GeoJSON files, so I did a bunch of downloading and organizing and blah. And the data sets are huge. When you activate them, you actually download them from the server and you keep them locally. But the point is, then you can actually render each type of airspace independently. Okay. It's nice if you just want to look at like the MOAs, right? So this would be a nice, let me just do the MOAs. Oh, I need to download the file. So we're taking you from zero here. It's going to download the file and then ingest the file and then start rendering the airspaces. And we got none, that can't be right. Oh, there's one. All right, so I didn't follow my own rule. Got to bring that height adjustment slider down. Okay, so let me back up a little bit. I'm going to use this new vertical slider, which is the geometry's thickness, very similar to the trace thickness, but it's the geometry, airspaces, etc. And you'll see it just sort of paints the lines in a little bit thicker way. And then if you hover, it's going to enlarge, so you kind of know what you're looking at. Anyway, my point here is, if you want to just look at a specific type of airspace, such as a MOA, such as a Class D or something like that, then you can expand and get the secondary airspace type list and then render them as you like. I prefer to do the other way. Oh, and I should also note, this airspace data is only it's coming from the FAA, so it's US only. All right, so if you're over, it doesn't include any international airspace. All right, got that all baked in, and then I found another data source that does full international, but it's sort of a one shot, right? So let me turn off the MOAs and then do the show all. So this is my sort of preferred way. It's much simpler. We're going to be working this example for the rest of today. Show all, click once, it's very fast, goes and grabs that data from the API, renders it all, and you can see we're still getting these MOAs, right? But we're also getting everything else. All right. So let me turn down the thickness a little bit, and I'm going to bring the height adjustment slider up just a little bit so we get a nice view of this Class B airspace. Now you'll notice a couple things. We get a new panel on the left-hand side, this guy here, and that's going to dynamically adjust to what types of airspaces were loaded in your search radius. All right. So for this one, we've got some dangerous areas. We've got Class D, Class B, and looks like a TFR, or prohibited rather. This is prohibited. And there's a couple things in the header which are important. You can show the labels of the airspace. So let me increase the label size, and you can see those sort of rendering in. I'll make them larger. And those are at the top plane of that airspace. And what it does is it takes the centroid, right? The geographic, taking all the points together, averages them together, puts that sort of center, and that's the hover point to get the airspace to highlight, okay? When you're in a complex airspace like Class B, it gets a little tricky to declutter this, okay? So that's why you can make it smaller, or you can turn those labels off completely if you don't want to watch them or see them. The other really nice thing here is the little pop-out panel. So we turn that on, so it's popped out now, and then when you hover, it goes and grabs that data and gives you more data about that, including start time, stop time. So if it's active only certain hours of the day, the altitude information, pretty much anything that I've gotten from the service, I'll drop in here as well. A little bit of a decode what it is, what country it is, etc. Okay, and in the show all, the data that comes back, the title of this usually includes the frequency to tune in to actually get clearance or more information to contact ATC about that. So more for pilots, if you're going to be transiting this airspace and you want to know who to contact while you're in flight to find out if this area is hot or not. Okay, so I'll make that a little bit smaller, get off the side here, and then you can see as I hover around, these different airspaces are going to pop up. Okay, cool. Any questions before I continue about this?
Well, I pulled up DFW. I've got everything you have except the orange showing there. I have the purple, the light blue, red.
Okay. Does your search radius say 100?
I'm at 150. Change it to 100.
No, if it's as long as it's larger, then you probably should get them.
Yeah.
The other option is if you may have clicked on, so like the type list and category list panel, these are toggles. So you can turn off all the danger boxes or turn off the class Ds or the class Bs.
Okay.
So you may have accidentally clicked on, if there's a red box around it, then that airspace type has been hidden.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Good question.
Hey, go into pieces. I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
So I've been trying to sort this out for some time now. What designates something as a danger area? Where does that term come from? I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a special use airspace, and again,
Right.
this is what I've picked up from just doing the work here, right? If you go, if you want to ping me offline, I'll send you the link to the FAA airspace user interface, right, where you can actually get at the raw data. They've got a nice sort of web interface where you can do, search on different all the different airspaces, look at the special use airspaces, and then do the exports if you want, whatever. Anyway, so yeah, DZ, danger zone. I don't know what that entails. Maybe that's what you're asking, is like what makes it a danger zone, what's around it, different than
what I'm asking you is where does the term danger zone come from? Because I've never seen that. You have MOAs, right? Military operating areas that are activated or deactivated. And you have warning areas, which are essentially MOAs that are over the ocean off the coast. And then you've got restricted areas, and you've got temporary flight restriction area, TFRs, and you've got prohibited areas. But the term danger zone or danger area, I'd never heard it until I started watching Monkey.
Yeah.
So is that a term coming from the FAA?
I'm assuming so. I tell you, when I was an active pilot, I didn't ever really encounter the for me it was restricted. It was the hot button TFRs with the new one, they didn't even have TFRs when I started flying, but restricted, prohibited, those are the hot buttons. I never really encountered the danger zones or watch or alert areas, only MOAs. So I'm not really sure. It's a good question. I'll do a little research on that, and if I come up with anything, I'll post something. But yeah, I'm not sure. I know that most of the stadiums are going to have TFRs. Nuke facilities are going to have often the TFRs. Yeah, I've seen a little bit of international, and maybe this is probably was grown out of the international side. We can go look at another airspace international wise in a second here, but anyway. So sorry, I can't give you a better answer than that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, I spent a year at NORAD after 9/11. I was current ops officer for the Northeast sector, So we own Canada to North Carolina and the Atlantic Ocean to the Mississippi River.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there when the beginning of TFR started. So I'm the TFR over the Twin Tower rubble was based on where the Twin Tower rubble was. That's the TFR that was over New York, and then there was one over DC. It was centered on the Washington Monument and so forth. So I'm familiar with every term I've seen in this program except for danger area, or danger zone. Just never seen that term before. I was trying to figure out where it came from. That's all.
Yeah, it's good. It's a great question. All right, so incidentally, things that I've seen in other places that haven't seen in the U.S. There's in Germany, especially Netherlands, Amsterdam area. There's parachute jumping areas, special zones. We usually just the ATC calls them out in the States. They've got actual zones of PGEs, and there are a few other anomalies. It's been definitely a learning curve as I jumped into airspaces internationally. It's funny. I think we were probably the first to actually sort of bootstrap, creating airspaces. And I tell you, ours seems like the most duct taped together. Canadian airspace is like super, like it's very structured, and the airspaces, the transit areas are all that. Everything's very structured. U.S. is sort of a hodgepodge. Anyway, okay, so let me continue with airspaces. Let's jump over to a different area and check it out. Let's do Haneda, Japan. Hope I got this spelling right. There we go. All right, so if you have the airspaces turned on, once you jump to this new area, it should automatically grab. There we go. And let me turn off the labels just so it's a little bit easier to read and bring this down a little bit more. Now, this is kind of what I mean. It's not often in the States where you get an area that's completely controlled, but Japan, the Hanedas, is you can see they've got the ingress points and outgress points all staggered, all very, structured, but it's like everything's covered. There isn't barely an inch of that's not under some type of controlled airspace. And then you get these other guys that are these restricted ones that go very high, complete.
Well, you know that the U.S. that we've got ADAs as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because that's what NORAD enforces. Part of what they enforce.
Yeah. So let's look at Paris is also one that's super controlled, or at least it feels blanketed with controlled airspace. I know that some of these are they're not necessarily controlled in the sense that you have to have clearance to enter them. But again, I'm not an expert on the international airspace stuff. I'm just telling you what I picked up along the way here.
Right. Well, if you approach the U.S. coast from over the water, and if you fly outside of the ATIS, turn around and fly back in, you're going to get called on guard, and if you don't respond, you're going to get intercepted by U.S. fighters.
Oh yeah.
And it includes the ocean as well. So if a ship comes within the 12-mile limit in the U.S., it's going to be investigated by the Coast Guard and NORAD as well.
Yeah, aggressively.
Sometimes, yeah. I'll tell you, I just doing a little bit of looking here on the side. It looks like the term danger zone or danger area is a European term, not a U.S. term, from what I can tell.
Yeah. Well, this data source that I'm pulling, the sort of show all, is an international source. It actually it's fairly complete. There's only a few countries, Mexico being one of the weird ones that is kind of an anomaly. Some of the Central American countries will have them, some won't. So it's not ubiquitous, but anyway, you can see as the list has grown here on the side, like there's special glider areas, ID required areas, different ones than when you have in the States. But anyway, you can see here at Paris, again, pretty ubiquitous, completely saturated with controlled airspaces. You'll also notice that we got a bunch outside the search radius area. So the rule is if any part of that airspace geometry touches within your search radius, I'm going to render the whole thing. just so it's, it's more of a all-encompassing rather than, limiting. And I don't do any truncation of the data. So as you can see here, if any of it touches it, like this little tiny corner of this big one, it's gonna come in. All right, so let's go back to DFW. FW. And we'll get deeper into the, I gotta say, this is the only place that you'll find 3D airspaces that's not like a rendered animation that's sort of fixed, right? An interactive, dynamic thing. I've always wanted, being a gamer and the pilot, this is something I've always wanted. And so it's been pretty cool to actually create it myself. But, to actually see these upside down wedding cakes, as they say, and to really visualize the different airspaces in 3D is pretty slick. All right, so I think we've talked about the sort of interface perspective of the different airspaces and the options that are available here. Key takeaways really are this list is going to be dynamically generated based on what's there. You saw when we go international, we got a lot more in the list. So what I'm going to do now to get into the Overwatch of airspaces is I'm going to simplify this a little bit, turn on Overwatch, and we'll play around a little bit more. All right, so I'm going to turn off the danger, and I'm going to turn off the class D, and we don't need that really small restriction, but now we're looking at just this sort of class B. I'm going to zoom in one more level because that's going to give it to us. Yeah, good. All right, perfect. And let's just play around with another map style and see if that still looks okay with that blue. Might make more sense if we look at the sat view. Okay, any questions before I move on? Jump in there, Overwatch. If anyone's near Tacoma, all right, I'm thinking about the real world current application during CAP, okay. Yes, Steve Wallace, I believe so. If I'm reading you right, we'll play around with that. I'll pull in the cap. We'll do that at the end. Remind me before we take off. I'll bring in the cap list and track some flights. Okay, so again, the Mapbox, which is the map provider, their API is not so perfect. So if you get a straggler tile that didn't load in, just click on this reset button, and that will reset all of them. There we go. All right, good. Everybody's able to see that okay? Good enough high contrast? Okay, perfect. So now let's bring some traffic in. I'm just going to do a snapshot so we can kind of see where we're at. Looks like we got a good amount here. And we get 245 on screen. All right, I'm going to make those a little bit smaller. And you know what? I'm going to peel off the aircraft icons just so we can kind of focus on what we're doing here. The other thing I'm going to do is you'll notice we get this smattering of ground traffic. So I'm going to turn those off. Okay. So I'm going to go into preferences, and it's right dead center, show ground traffic. I'm going to turn that off and close preferences. And now when I burn and reload, then we won't see anybody that's on the ground here. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so these are all airborne air traffic. All right, so watch list. Let me clean up this a little bit more. I'm going to move this up to the top. And to turn on the Overwatch is the big red triangle with the red background and the white aircraft. Turn that on, and then we'll have this new interface. I had a bunch in here, so I'm going to burn those. Remove all. We're going to start from scratch. So this is basically what you're going to see when you do this. All right. And so the Overwatch panel, you've got some of your sort of, move this guy over here. Make this a little larger. Okay, great. I'm going to turn off the labels and the sliders and the location just so we get a nice tight interface. Okay, perfect. Everybody see that okay? All right, awesome. Okay, perfect. So we've got kind of our usual suspects in the header. We've got a deeper config panel, which we'll talk about in a second. There's another config panel for the alerts, just so that you know there's another level of alert configuration here. And then to burn the list, we've got a flame icon here, but let's deal with the, well, let's continue what I was doing in the first place here, which is the fastest way to sort of build up being your own air traffic controller kind of thing over an area that's already got defined airspaces is just to convert these airspaces into an Overwatch, right? So let's get one. Let me turn on the labels. So we've got some hover targets. I'm going to make those a little bit smaller. There we go. All right. So let's see here. We've got some. So let's take the. This is probably an approach and departure area. If you hover over it, right click. Once it's highlighted, you get the option to convert that airspace, that already defined airspace, into an Overwatch area. So we'll click on Create Overwatch, and you'll notice a couple of things happen. It turns yellow, and now we've got the new entry in the list here. Cool? All right, so, and what it does is it grabs the name that was supplied by the airspace folks, right? So this one in particular, Dallas Class B Area I, so for India. All right, so sort of anticipating that this is going to be useful for folks. If you click on the configuration of the Overwatch, we get some new options here. So we can edit the label, we can edit the description, we can change the top and bottom ceilings, and then we can do some other functions. We won't get into those yet, but this is if you want to delete the airspace, the Overwatch area, this is how you do it from here, delete. You'll also notice there's a couple extra little automatic sort of formatting based on the supplier that we got. So if you want to trim to just the first word, you can click there, trim to just the last one, or do the first and last. This is kind of what I like. And what it does is I'll hit this button here, the FL. Boom. So what it does is it maintains the first word, which is usually going to be the airport area, and then it takes the last letter and does the aviation alphabet for it. So now it's become Dallas, India, right? So let me do this one for this one. Hovering is class area D, right click, make that a watch list area. Let me save that one and then open up, there we go. Open up that configuration, hit that FL again, and now we've got Dallas Delta, right? So this will make a little bit more sense when we get into the voice alerts, okay? Because you want to make sure that that's kind of nice and tight. You don't want all that data, especially if you've converted something that's got one of those that includes the frequency, because the description is just super long. So you want to get anticipating for the voice alerts. You want to get the label of this and something tight. All right, very sweet there, Steve. Okay, cool. So I like to also take out the description. It's not necessarily needed, and it cleans up the label, which will make a little bit more sense in a second. So just to review, I'm removing the descriptions just so it cleans up and kind of creates some empty space here, which you'll see in a second why we're doing that. All right, so let me grab, let's create one more. That's kind of a weird one. Let's get over here. So we're kind of anticipating a approach departure, right? All right. So did you hear that too? Did that ping come through? So when I activated that Overwatch area, there was an aircraft inside it, and so we got an alert immediately. So Southwest Airlines number 12, which is a Boeing 737, 2.8 nautical miles inside of SkyGlass Delta. It's interesting why it pinged, not before. All right, so let me clean this one up. And then we're going to reload some traffic. I'm going to do the FL on this as well. So we're going to get Dallas Mike. Save. All right, so for now, this is probably good. We got 3 airspaces. Now let me resize things here so we can get a nice view of the traffic. I'm going to turn off the labels again. Oh, you know what? I think I picked the wrong one. Yeah, I can see the traffic's kind of coming in, looks like north-south, not east-west, but whatever. Okay, so let's go through the settings a little bit more, tweak those. I'm going to hit the Overwatch header config and doing a couple more things. I'm going to turn on the predictive alerts. This is something new in 2.1, super fun. And I'm going to make this 2 minutes. And that from what I found is sort of the standard separation from the FAA. You want to keep aircraft about 2 minutes apart. So the point here is when we start to see these vectors, the tip of that forward vector is going to line up with the tail of that aircraft, the other aircraft in these busy airports. All right, so we got predictive alerts, which is basically going to do a forward position on those aircraft that are in those areas. And then we'll leave these for now. All right, so I'm going to close that config panel. All right, next thing I'm going to do is let's do some alert configuration. So you'll see in the header, there are 2 audio signals here. The first one is just a bell. Let me turn on the help. There we go. Toggle just the alert sounds. There are sort of 2 different levels of the sounds. There's the geofence sound, and then there's the watch list aircraft sound. They're just the same kind of bell, but just a little bit different tone, so you kind of get an auditorial distinction. And then this is to turn on the voice alerts. All right. So I'm going to turn those on as well. Oh, I think I'm on an account that doesn't have data. So hold on one moment. I'm just going to go into my back end and give myself some credits. This is a great example to work actually. If you are a pro subscriber, if you're on a monthly, then you're given 1,000 credits per month, and those accumulate, right? So if you don't necessarily use them, then they're going to just stack up on you. If you are a annual subscriber, then you get 10,000 all at once, and then if you run out of those, then you just can buy packs of 1,000 or 10,000 going. I kind of had to do this because the AI voice alert system that I use does meter it for me, and so so I don't get just running away expenses. I kind of had to meter this out. But I'm flexible. If people have issues or want to experiment more, just reach out to me and we can work together on it. All right, so give me 1 second. Let me just add some credits to my username here. We're at SkyGlass Pro. All right. Okay, great. So now let me go into the config and turn this on again. All right, turn on the Overwatch. Well, shoot. I guess the other thing I could do is just log into a different account. Let me do that.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
On the right clicking, like you showed us, to highlight to make a Overwatch. How do you do that on an iPad? Or can you?
Oh, yeah, I haven't worked that out yet.
Okay, because right now I'm on my iPad and
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It's on the list.
I'll set up a separate Overwatch on that then. If I wanted to.
So the sort of analog for desktop is if you've got a trackpad and you don't have a mouse that's got a right and left button, and I believe it's the control button, keyboard control, and then click is sort of the alternative for that. There is a keyboard shortcut for the option of that.
Well, I can hook a keyboard up to my iPad. I could try that.
Oh, that's a possibility. Yeah, I haven't tested that though. That's a good point.
Yeah, I'll look at that. Thank
Okay,
you.
so you bet. So we're playing with the voice alerts. I prefer. So we did do a voice clone with Monkey's permission, of course. We did a voice clone of Monkey. So if you want Monkey's list or him to actually make the announcements, that's one of the options. I kind of like Sophie. Sophie's voice, it does a very fast reading of it, so I kind of like that because it'll announce them quickly. But you can see, you can also test the voice.
Thanks for using SkyGlass.
Click on the little tester, and that'll give you a quick sort of sample of that. While we're here, let's just hear from Monkey. Monkey takes a little bit of time. There's a little bit more latency in the loading.
Thanks for using SkyGlass.
All right. And, you know, these are AI voice generated, so the intonation will be a little weird sometimes, but overall it's pretty good.
Thanks for using SkyGlass.
Okay, cool. So we've got our voice alerts turned on. These are some other settings. Do we want to show the aircraft traces, meaning as they enter the airspace, do we automatically want to generate the trace? Generally, I'll leave that off. And then there is an option to take all these alerts and have them logged to a file automatically. So in this sense, it would be a great way to, like, if you put stand up an Overwatch over your area and then turn on SkyGlass on an auto refresh every 15 seconds, then walk away from it. You can have an actual log of anything that came through with the time and space, and there's deep links on that, so you can get right back into that time and space when they traverse your geofence. So we'll leave that off for now. And then there's two different formats for the alert. It'll say you can have the bearing to the target, meaning the announce will say something like we'll turn that on. Traffic bearing 180 at 2 miles. This at this altitude and what it's doing, descending or climbing. For this example, we're going to do the Overwatch breach because we're going to have kind of multiple of Overwatch areas that are sort of set up. But I would imagine if you're doing a single one for your AO, you'll probably want to do the bearing to target so that you'll get a call out of like where it is, and you'll know where to vector, look around, to find that aircraft in your environment. Okay, so now that we've got everything sort of set up correctly, I'm going to turn off the configuration and I'm going to clear any alerts that are already here. I'll clean up the interface a little bit more again, and let's turn on auto refresh.
It's WA12 inside of Dallas Delta. It's WA1376 inside of Dallas Delta. Proximity alert. Aircraft 5 Foxtrot Kilo is 4.9 from Dallas Mike. Center security inside of Dallas Mike.
All right, great. So you can hear, I like Sophie because she really whips them off. She'll get through the list pretty quickly. I'm going to turn off voice alerts just for now. We'll still get the dings as it refreshes. But you can see in the alerts that were generated, there's sort of two colors we've got. We've got yellows and the magentas. The yellow means it's actually inside that geofence that we set up. And the purple, magenta, is a proximity alert. So that means and so that's sort of the point. When we turn on the forward position, the predictive alerts, it's doing a lookup. It does a prediction, does anywhere of that forward position traverse that airspace, and then that becomes a proximity alert. So it gives you kind of an early warning, if that makes sense. Make sense? All right, good. Welcome, SW. Didn't see you drop in. Glad you're here. Okay, cool. So I'm going to turn this auto refresh down to like 1 second. So it's going to be super fast, and they're going to generate. And you'll see these alerts. They update, meaning they'll update the distance and the telemetry, etc. And then you'll also notice, and this is kind of why I cleaned up the description here, is we've got a little bit of a sort of a historical graph building. So let's do this. Let me find the inner airspace here, not that one. That's the one. And we'll create an Overwatch. So this is that sort of main central area that goes all the way to the ground. And I'm going to turn off the description and save. And you'll notice we've got a lot more now listed in the list of alerts. And now you can see we've got a nice graph that's been growing here. And I just made some sort of arbitrary, limits. If it's 1 to 5 in that area, it's going to be, or 0 to 3, it's green. There's a mid-level of yellow, and then if it's more than 10, it's going to be the red. But you can kind of, this is a quick visual of like how many aircraft have been in this geofence in the last X number of times. One little bar is just the last auto refresh. It's not based on time. So since we're doing a 1 second auto refresh, let me turn off the little pings. Since we're doing a 1 second auto refresh, this is going to build out pretty quickly. If you've got it set to like 10 seconds or something like that, then again, one little micro bar here in the graph is an auto refresh cycle. All right, so let me zip in here a little bit closer, and you can see a couple other things that happen when an aircraft has traversed or has triggered an alarm in a geofence. It's going to turn labels on, and then we've got the forward positions will also show. So you'll see the other aircraft are not showing those details. So it kind of gives you, again, some more situational awareness of that aircraft that you want to focus on. If we get out here to some of these other airspaces like this guy, you can see his forward position. Let me make those a little bit larger. There we go. All right, is this making sense? Let me turn the airspace geometries down a little bit. The other thing we could do is just turn off the airspaces and just look at the Overwatch areas. So you can see those rendered. Okay, any questions before I move on? We kind of did the heavy example first with converting a known airspace into an Overwatch. A drink here.
Yeah, go. I missed the. How did you click the non-Overwatch airspaces on and off? I missed that part at the end there.
Yeah, it's the area at the top of the airspace, the show all. That's what brings all the airspaces on. And then, so I just turned them off.
Gotcha.
So it just left the Overwatch areas. Yeah. So we turn off the Overwatch, and you'll see everything sort of goes back to normal. Click on the Overwatch. It's just going to render those Overwatch airspaces, and then start triggering alarms, etc. All right.
Okay.
So
one more quick question. So we put in DFW here, and so you're looking at the airspace around DFW. You have within just a few miles of DFW, you've got DAL for Love Field. You've got Alliance Airport, Ross Perot. You've got Meacham Field. So do you have to put in each one of those airport identifiers, or can you expand this box? Will it pick up the other airports in the area, or how does that work?
Yes, you don't have to go each one. So let's work the problem. So I'm going to turn off auto refresh just so we're not hogging resources. I'm going to burn traffic. And I'm going to burn the list of the geofences that we've created. So we're going to start from scratch. Remove all. Make this a little bit smaller. Okay, so now I'm going to show all airspace in the area. Let me back up. I'm going to zoom out a little bit more, and that's going to automatically reload those airspaces once the tiles render. I complain about the satellite is it's definitely heavier. There's a lot of color detail. The more monochrome, a little bit snappier, take a little bit less memory. So if you're memory intensive, that's a good tip for you. In fact, let's do that. I'm going to switch to, let's go to the gray. It's going to be a nice and high contrast. All right, good. See how much faster that, oh, I don't want the watch list. Okay, so let's turn off the dangers. And you're saying like, I'm not sure, you said Love Field. I don't necessarily see that one in here. There's a few that are underneath the airspace, right? But you can, if you want to convert either one of those airspaces, just do the same thing. Right click on it, create Overwatch. Right click, create Overwatch. And let's grab Waco. And let's grab one of these guys in here. We got a Fort Worth Meacham. And then this.
Yeah, that was one of the ones on my list. Love Field might be that one out to the left of the box, the left of your screen. Not sure. Well, yeah, that's on the edge.
Oh, I see. Look, that's
That-
Tyler.
Okay, yeah, it's too far south. Okay, anyway, this is exactly what I was asking, so thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So again, just it worked the same issue. Let's grab a lot more of these. Boom, boom, boom. Good. And I'm going to turn off the Class Bs. Actually, I'm going to turn off all the airspaces. We'll just keep the rendered, the ones that we've made it into a geofence. And now we've got those aircraft. All right, so you can quickly do the front last. You all feel like these little shortcut buttons will be helpful, especially if you're doing something like that? Yeah, good. All right, good. I forgot to clear some of these out. All right. So let me just quickly get through that. And we've got, yeah, so like this one, Fort Worth Meacham Airport, right? So you probably, depending on what you're doing, if you're not, the Class B is a good for that FL. Let's do, well, let's just keep that. This is going to be Fort Worth. So you may want to take some time in actually getting a good label in there, but you get the point. All right, Fort Worth. Perfect. Okay, and now we're going to render. We're going to load some aircraft. And now you've got these alerts that give you, where they are, where they're coming from. You've got some nice distinction. One of my beta tester users, he actually wanted to have the type as well. So we got the type in there. There is a little bit of discernment about the aircraft call sign. I'm not really seeing any examples in here. Let's bring back the Dallas. Let's get that central Dallas one. Create Overwatch. Turn off the airspaces again. And I'm going to render or reload the traffic and see here. Incidentally, I don't think I've covered this yet. So, as we've gotten more and more complex with the user interface, things can sort of tend to cover each other up, right? And you can move them around. Any panel that has the little equal sign, the two bars, grab that, becomes a handle. You can move it around. If you double click on that bar, the equal sign, it'll reset it back to its original position or its sort of anchor parent. Meaning I'll do this, I'll grab the Overwatch, you'll see that kind of moves with it, and then I grab this away, if I double click, it's going to just snap it back to the parent, and once they've sort of been moved, they're not going to be automatically toggled. Point was, if there's multiple windows that are on top of each other, especially if there's these sort of interactable buttons, you want to grab some white space or some empty space, but a right click will move that window to the back, and a left click will move it to the front, right? So if you'll notice here, I'm looking at an empty area, I'm going to right click, it sends it backwards, and now I can see this airspace window, right? So like in the same way, if I pull the typeless panel up, it's like, everything's kludgy. So if I right click, it's going to send that backwards. If I pick some clear area, left click, it's going to bring it forward. Makes sense? Okay, good. All right. Any questions before we move on to creating your Overwatch area for your AO or different ways to create Overwatches? All right. So if any questions arise, feel free to interrupt me, but let me clean up my interface now. So I'm going to burn my Overwatch list and burn my alerts list. And let's clean this up a little bit more. And all right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my local area. I'm going to pick, let's see, Boynton Beach. And that's in Florida. It should match there. All right. So here's my sort of local area map. Just for the example, I'll pull up the airspaces in the area. We've got a lot of Class Ds, Class Cs, and of course the Miami Class B. But I'm sort of in this white spot here. So if different ways to create overwatches, click on the plus. Let me make this a little bit larger. All right, click on the plus button in the Overwatch header. We'll bring up this new panel, and there are 4 different ways to create overwatches. You can create a quick one around your home location based on some defaults, and the defaults are in this header panel. Overwatch defaults, upper limit 2,000 feet, lower limit 0 ground level, and then distance of 5 miles. Okay, so that's the default. You can again obviously change that, or you can edit it post creation. But let's go back to this. Oops, left click or right click to send those back. Okay, great. So if we click on home location, it's going to, from the default, render that Overwatch around whatever your current home location is. Okay, so I'm going to do that now. Boom, you can see got my new Overwatch area over my little city. Okay, and then you can see it in the list here. And again, if we wanted to edit those top and bottom, ceiling or floor, we can do that in the edit panel. Let me move this off to the side. There we go. And then these are, you can edit them manually, or you can use these little handles to drag, make it higher, lower. So let's make that 5,000 feet. Whoops. There we go. Or put it in manually, 5,000 feet. Okay, and save. All right. You can do the same sort of thing, but doing it around a central position. So if you click here, it's going to bring up another different interface, and now we can sort of put in a defined label, change the geofence area. So if I want to say like Boca Raton, and when I hit enter, it's going to look up that geofence or the latitude and longitude, and I'll say Boca, and we can say it's going to be 10 miles. Let's make this 15,000 feet, and then create. Boom, you can see we've got another geofence there. So you can kind of, if you want to do this manually for different locations and not have to do the home, and redo the defaults, you can sort of set the basic parameters here. All right, so let me burn these as well. All right, there are also, I'm saving my best for last, my most favorite for last. You can also do an import, and there are a couple different ways of importing a geofences. These are sort of a standardized GeoJSON format. There's a lot of variety in GeoJSON formats, so I haven't tested obviously all of them, but there is a website, geojson.io, that you can actually, create some GeoJSON files over a map interface. You can also export and then import this way. And I also have done some testing with ArcGIS. If you're a city employee, you might have access to some of your county maps and things like that, first responders, LEOs. So if you export that data, you can do that. But the fun part here is draw your own custom area. So let's say let's work the Texas border. So let's just go into Texas. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit and move a little bit farther south, just so we can see the burn the traffic. And I'm going to back up even more, just so we can see that border. And all right, cool. So I'm also going to change the map style to one that actually highlights those borders a little bit more clearly. Hope this is the one. Yeah, now we can see the Texas border nice and easy. All right, so Some of us all may be concerned about the border. So now I've got a good view, a good setup here of the southern border. All right, let me clean up my interface as well. Okay, good. So my camera is now in a good position to do what I'm trying to do, which is basically I want to have a geofence of the southern border, right? Now, draw a custom area. We've got, so let's do southern border as the label. We'll leave this at 2000 for now, lower limit at 0. And now, if I click around the map, check it out. First click is going to draw your first anchor position. And now I'm just going to go follow the border around. And you'll notice at each location, it's going to give you the little latitude and longitude. That's probably not going to be as important for most people, but the reference point is there. And I'm just going to kind of finish this out. And then once you get close to your starting position, you can see that that green target will hover back again. That means that when I click there, it's going to close that geofence. And now we've got a geofence set up. And now you can also see there's an upper limit sort of handle here. If you grab that handle, you can raise the geofence height dynamically. So let's put it up at about 100,000 feet. So we're going to get everything. And there we go. Now let's see here. We're at 850 miles. So let me limit the traffic to just masked and military flights. I'm going to center my map up a little bit more using my little shift double click. Oh, sorry. All right, so first let's make it an Overwatch. I didn't finish the process. Sorry about that. Okay, so we clicked around to define our geofence. We finished the loop. Then we drag to get the upper limit. And now the last step is to simply, now that we've put it into a label, we'll click Make Overwatch. And now that Overwatch has been locked in. So now I can shift double click on the map, and that's going to read you my home location. So now we got something nice and big. And now let's load some traffic. So this is a good example to work, right? Because I knew that if I grabbed all traffic, it's going to be too much to load, right? 3,685 total aircraft. So I turned off the standard class, which gave me just masked and military. Make sense? And so now we've got, we turn off the Create Overwatch. And so now we can see all the different aircraft that are inside that geofence area that are military and masked. So let me turn the labels back on so we can kind of see what we're looking at. All right. So we definitely got some fighter trainer activity probably down here. What are these guys? Yeah, Tex 2s. All right. But getting the idea? See the utility of this? Good stuff? Okay, cool. So again, I think this would be a very interesting use case in the sense of, you know, set it and then walk away from it, have it be outputted to a log file, and then on a daily basis or whatever, you can, you know, do your Excel wizardry to, you know, crunch the numbers of the CSV file, of the JSON file. All right, any questions?
Are the Border Patrol balloons that are up, are those going to show on here as well?
If they're transponders on, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I track those. Those are on my watch list. November 81 Zool or something. I know there's one in Yuma. There's one over Texas, and then there's actually one over in the Keys, in the Florida area.
Yeah, the Key West one. I used to. Yeah, that's for counter narcotics, human trafficking.
Yeah. All right, so that's a great example. So let's get into. So I actually had a conversation with a Army range controller. He was looking at some software to do their job. They're kind of like an Army air traffic control in the Yuma area. So that's why I built out some of these other features. So let's play around with that, and we'll go deeper into that into this sort of edge case. I'm going to clear all the overwatches, clear the alerts, and I'm going to dial in Yuma. And I'm going to go a little bit closer in. There we go. All right, I'm going to change my map style. Good high contrast. All right, and so I'm going to show airspace because this is an interesting example because they've got some like flight corridors in and out of Phoenix to the right through here. You can see that one there. Let me back up a little bit more. And I'll tune this up and turn these up a little bit higher. And the aerostat tends to sit right here. So let's go find that target. All right, so I'm going to home to this sort of area. There we go. Okay, let's load traffic. Oh, I'm going to turn the standard one back on, load traffic. Oh, I'm not seeing it. It must be offline or the transponder's off. That is interesting. Get some trainers out here. B-22. Oh, we got Ospreys up. 2 of them. That's cool. All right. So the request that I got from, or one of the requirements that the range controller wanted was, you know, they use these restricted areas. Let me turn on like this one here. So let's make that an Overwatch. And we've obviously got some activity up there, so they're using that right now. So this will be hot. Anyway, so they asked for, can I split an airspace and sort of get, you know, because they have different height levels. So I added that feature in. So now we can split vertically. And what that does is it basically chops it in half, and then you can adjust those bottom and top altitude levels to fit what they want. And then this, let me make this a little bit larger so we can see it okay. And then you can turn these airspaces on or off, these overwatches, make them hot or cold. So then that's this toggle here. Blue means it's cold, it's not on. And then, so you're not going to get any alerts if the airspace is cold, but instead of having to like recreate the airspace every time and delete it, you can just simply turn it off.
Can you set it up so that the airspace is going to be hot for 6 hours in a 24-hour period? Can you program it?
No, not this point.
Yet.
No,
Okay.
no. I would absolutely do that if that would be a sort of a, you know, enterprise level. If somebody's got a specific use case or want to do that, it's doable. The scheduling could get a little bit complex, but it's not undoable for sure. It's totally possible.
Well, it's just curious because you've got, I mean, ultimately at some point it would be pretty amazing if you could have the NOTAM system feeding into SkyGlass. So they put out a NOTAM that, you know, this MOA or this VFR or IFR low-level military training route is going to be active for this period of time. It'd be because they'll include in the NOTAM the lat long or the name of the route or the name of the airspace or the MOA. It'd be amazing if you could. I realize it'd be massive, but if you could have that NOTAM system feed into it, and so you'd have airspaces popping up and disappearing during the day as areas go hot and cold.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great suggestion. The NOTAM system, obviously, if you've seen them, like there's so many different types of NOTAMs, and so it's a filtering issue that's doable. And then but most of the data is available. I think it's possible from at least I have access to it. So yeah, great idea.
Yeah, I can help you with some of that stuff down the road. I worked airspace my last 4 years at the FAA.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, when I get into it, the NOTAM system for sure is something that would be, you know, not just from a MOA perspective, you know, hot cold, but there's a lot of value there. Absolutely. Yep. Okay, cool. So let's see here. All right, so we basically covered all of the different variations of creating an Overwatch area. We talked about turning them on and off, adjusting the heights, splitting them, taking the labels and changing them as well. One thing I didn't notice or didn't actually speak to was, let me refresh the data. There's a count in the Overwatch description here, which shows how many active aircraft are in that airspace at the moment. Let's see here. Okay, cool. And what else? And we talked about the different voice alerts that you can turn on and off, the different sound alerts, logging to the files, etc. Okay, cool.
Saving and transferring to a different machine.
Ah, great. Good job. Thanks, Ren. Okay, so if you've got multiple devices, you can, once you've built up your watch list or your Overwatch list, you can export it. So let me turn off the auto refresh. In the configuration, we've got a header here. You can export it and import right from the top, the folder icons, or you can save your current Overwatch up to the SkyGlass server and then go to a different device and pull it down through the cloud icons. Just like you can with your watch list, you can do the same with your Overwatch list. All right. Haven't seen a whole lot of interest yet for like a whole shared list like we did for the watch list, but that's doable as well if there's enough interest. I'm happy to hear about it. But yes, great question. Thanks, Ren, for that. Perfect. All right. Cool. So let's talk about watch list alerts now. So in the same way that if anything triggers a geofence penetration or forward position proximity alert, you can create alerts for watch list aircraft. So I'm going to open up my watch list. And I've been doing some work here, playing with some imports and exports. So I got a massive list right now, 8,000 aircraft. Okay. So let me collapse these. Let me make this interface a little bit easier to see. Something we didn't really talk about, you can scale this list dynamically. If you double click on the handle, it will minimize or maximize. And there's also, let me make this a little bit easier to see. If you'll notice, there's a pair of chevrons up and down. They're really small, but this is a single button to minimize or to maximize. And now it's going to go at full screen if it's too big, meaning you haven't gotten the whole list, or if your user interface can handle it, it will scale to the minimum size columns to see all watch list groups, or actually the whole list if you've got stuff expanded. Okay, so we pop open the auxiliary header, reorganize a little bit more. Okay, good. So the icon that you're looking for is this alert icon. All right, so let's do.
Question.
Go ahead. While I clean this up.
Are your watch lists available to us?
Kind of, yes. We talked about the shared watch list yesterday, right? The shared icons are right here. Let me turn on the help so we can see that. We've got, you can share your watch list to the community, or you can download others that have already been shared, and there's a number of shared lists that are out there. For example, we've got Monkey's watch list, been downloaded 300 and some odd times. If you see the ones that are in there from SkyGlass, those are the ones that I've actually uploaded. So I've done a little bit of work trolling the database for like medic flights, or for sheriff, Civil Air Patrol was one example. That's in here right here. Where is it? Civil Air Patrol. Let's load some more. Yeah, there it is, Civil Air Patrol. Yeah, let's do that example. This is great. We'll kind of do a 2-for-1. So I'm going to burn the list, start from scratch, and let's download the Civil Air Patrol. So I've got the shared list up. Just going to click on that left one. Here we've got the option, do I want to, add or blend, replace or blend. Since I have an empty list, it doesn't really matter. But let's just hit replace. And then boom, here's my Civil Air Patrol list. I'm going to close the shared watch list interface. I'm going to back up to a continental kind of view. Hold 1 second. Okay, I'm back. All right, so now we can kind of see the United States nice and easy. All right. Now we can see the ones that are flying here.
Just so people know, we fly 90% of the first Air Force missions.
Wow, impressive. Okay, cool. So the header of so there's a few different places to turn on and off alerts for watch list aircraft. You can do it on a per aircraft level. Make this a little bit larger. And that is, if the aircraft is live, and again, we've got the aircraft watch list filtered for only active traffic. If you wanted to see everything that's in that list, we turn off the active, and then you can see those that are active are going to show up in the bright white. The inactive, meaning they're on ground, they're going to be gray. I tend to, keep the list nice and tight, so we'll turn on just the live traffic. But point is, you can turn on the alerts per aircraft by clicking on the alert toggle in the aircraft list. You can do it on a per group level. All right, everything in the group, including those that are on ground or not flying. Click here.
That would be helpful because when we do searches, we have a known set of aircraft and with tail numbers that we know.
Yeah. So in that case, you may want to take those if there's a mission that's active that's going to include just those aircraft. You probably want to organize just those aircraft into their own group, or not. I mean, it depends on what you're trying to do. There's 600 some odd, Civil Air Patrol total. So anyway, you can turn them on for the entire group, or you can turn on alerts for everything in your list, right? So I would sort of avoid this. It's useful though if you want to turn off all of the aircraft, just kind of cycle through it, turn everything on, and then turn everything off. You can do it with one button through the auxiliary pop out. All right. So if you notice then that we turn them all on, and then we can turn them all off in just sort of a big sweeping group. Sometimes folks that have shared their watch list, they've turned on alerts for different aircraft, and I kind of want to just clean all that out. So I'll do that process, turn everything on, turn everything off, and it kind of resets all of the alert status for each aircraft. Okay, so again, 3 ways to turn on the alerts: per aircraft, per group, or for the entire watch list. All right, so let's just turn them on for the whole group, just so we've got some aircraft that are flying. And I'm going to reload the traffic. Incidentally, watch lists, you can have, this is how you show only your watch list aircraft and not anything else in the field, is you can turn on the auto refresh for watch list only. And then you get your own little countdown timer here. Since we have it at 1 second, let me make this a little bit larger, 15, and you'll see that sort of counts down. And then if it's on, it'll show green. And now if I send this to the back, we can see here's our list. And the list follows the OOI format. If you've ever heard of the OOI, OOI, off, on, OOI, out, off, on, and in.
On and in.
Yeah, so I kind of look at it from like a hangar perspective. If it's out of the hangar, off the ground, on the ground, or back in the hangar, so OOIs. And so those are sort of basically, we've got thresholds for airspeed if it's a fixed wing, and then thresholds for altitude if it's a rotorcraft. And then basically you're going to see off and on in the list here. And again, there's logging. So this is a way you can turn on your watch list and have just your alert aircraft going, and then go back and see. Incidentally, the geofences work for in time travel mode. So if you didn't capture a geofence, or it's like, a couple of days ago, I remember this aircraft was flying over my AO, and you can't remember when or exactly when, but you kind of knew the general time. You can dial up your geofence, get into time travel mode, and then just push play, let it cycle through, and then come back, and all those things will be logged. One thing I will be working on that is not implemented yet is a time travel watch list sort of hybrid, right? So time travel mode is pretty much limited to standard mode only. And if an aircraft shows up that's on your watch list, it will show with its icon, but you can't search on like just my watch list in time travel mode for that date and time. That is possible, but I just haven't baked it in yet. All right. And again, this is when it was sensed, not the actual takeoff time. All right, so you can see all the takeoff times here it's when we picked it up, right? Since we just started this process, it doesn't run the trace or anything like that and pick up the actual leg start time. Okay, it's just the sensing time. All right. Any questions? Let me check the chat. Nothing in chat. All right, great. All right, how are we doing so far? Oh gosh, we're pretty far over. I thought we were gonna go 30 minutes. We went an hour and a half again. All right, so I'm kind of getting to my limit. We've definitely covered everything in our list. I think we've worked all the examples that came up in our question, earlier. Flight history reports. All right, so I'll cover that very quickly, and then we'll go into a little bit deeper tomorrow. Unless there's any other questions about watch list alerts. Okay, silence means move on, Goa. All right, here we go. So I'm going to turn off my alerts. I'm going to close actually, we want to keep this open. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off auto refresh. All right, so 600 aircraft in this group is too many to run as an example. So I'm going to pull my watch list from the server. I'm going to replace it since I know that that's already in there. All right, great. Oh, there's that southern border balloon. I'm not seeing the other ones. Yeah, we're just the one DHS aircraft, the aerostat that's showing up now. Okay, so let's grab something that doesn't have a whole lot of a bunch of aircraft to make this a little bit faster. So let's do the spec ops list. I think this is something that Monkey was in his list. I didn't generate this. So what you do to run flight history reports, a couple different ways. Let me turn off auto or the help. There we go. Okay, so in the pro list, let me get everything else off. All right. Turn off these Overwatches and stuff. Okay, great. So now we just got our watch list back. Everything's good. Okay, so in the pro list, we've got the report section. There's two different sort of styles of reports. There's a flight history report, which is something that I actually bootstrapped. And then there's a operations report, which is a different endpoint, API endpoint from ADSB Exchange. It's experimental right now. It doesn't really pick up all the takeoffs and landings, but that's its point. It is a takeoff and landing for per aircraft or per airport. So let's focus on the flight history reports. So if you click on the report, flight history report button, it's going to switch you out of live air traffic mode into the flight history mode. It's going to tell you got to open up the database because it does a little bit of a lookup there. And then you can either enter a specific hex code of the aircraft directly here if you just want to do a one-off report, or we can do it from the watch list. as a group. So let's work that example because that's where most of you are probably going to do it from. Open up your watch list. We're going to pick a group, that Air Force Spec Ops group. All right, in the header, you can look at the auxiliary functions here, and then that same icon. It's going to say we're about to do a flight history report mode. This is going to disable live traffic. We want to say yes. And it says we need to upload the database. We okay. And now you'll notice all of those aircraft hex codes have already been preloaded in the list here. And then we've got the name of the group in the header here. So basically you want to just, next step is to dial in the dates. So let's just do last week. So let's do from the 10th to the 17th. And you can either do that through the date time picker, or you can actually like pick the now date and say 7 days past. You know, many different ways to dial in the time span. And then simply click on run the report. I like to also turn the traces button on. So that way, as this report runs, it renders the traces in the field at the same time. So it's going to do a couple different steps. It goes out for each of those days and gathers all the hex codes that were flying that day, and then it does a lookup. Hey, does my hex code in that daily list? If it does, then it goes and runs traces for that aircraft. So when it's done, it gives you a little, more finished report here with how many entries. We say okay, and now you can see all of them in the list and all of their traces. And something new in just in the last version gives you total time flown. So there's total hours that were spent by all these aircraft in this time span. And then there's, for each entry, you've got a start and a stop point. These are buttons. If you click on that, it's going to pop to that initial position, ending position. These look like little training flights here. They're not really changing too much. You can see it shift a little bit. And then it shows the general location, the registration for that aircraft, and then the flight time. Be aware that this just runs the traces and the data for the entire day. It does not break it up by leg. So if this aircraft, bounced and had 3 different stops, it's just going to show total time beginning to end. All right, not a leg format. All right, so that was very fast. I think Thaddy had that question. And I don't see her anymore. Well, she'll have to go back to the replay to see that. Okay, cool. All right, so my voice is getting a little fatigued. I'm going to stop there unless there's any more questions. I'm happy to entertain any more questions. Anything else before we wrap it for today?
One alibi here. The drones. So drones are required to have a code on them or a transponder built into them now if they're above what, some number of grams, right? So is that something that's being fed into the ADSB system? Is that something that you're going to incorporate at some point, or is that a whole different animal?
It is a whole different animal. So you're talking about the drone ID, right? That if it's over 249 grams, then it has to have a drone ID. From what I understand, that protocol and standard is not mandated yet. So there's still some things to be worked out. So I don't think they've actually finished on a standard. But again, I don't monitor the drone space as closely. It's kind of a loose touch point for me. However, so no, they're not going to be in this system. This system, as I talked about yesterday, requires the transponder to be on, transponder to be broadcasting on one of 2 frequency bands, the ADSB, which is the newer protocol that was from 2020. Any controlled airspace or any controlled aircraft has to be broadcasting on the new transponder 1090 frequency, 1090 megahertz frequency. The older one, 978, which is the Mode S, and then the other. So it has to be broadcasting on one of those 2, and then there's got to be a feeder in the area within line of sight, and then it'll be in the system. If those two criteria are not met, then we won't see it in SkyGlass. So basically, no, unless it's a drone that's got an ADS-B or Mode-S transponder, which are the Q4s, Q9s, those types of big aircraft drones, or something that is like a fixed-wing aircraft that's been repurposed for autonomous flight, that's going to have a transponder. But your little DJIs that are going to be required to have the drone ID, those are not going to be picked up.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think it's very likely once the standard is mandated that there probably will be a crowdsourced effort to be feeding like like has grown up around the ADS-B and the other crowdsourced feeders. If we get lucky, they'll actually mandate the Mode S and the network's already in place. We'll see. But from what I understand, the drone ID frequency is like the Wi-Fi. So the range is going to be pretty small. Not like you're going to get hundreds of miles from 1090 and from 978. So, I mean, imagine the number of feeders that you're going to need to really have ubiquitous coverage. So that's still to be worked out. Long answer to your short question. Did that cover it?
That's all right. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for all the effort you put in the last 2 days. I've learned an enormous amount.
Great. Well, I hope you show up tomorrow. We got 2 o'clock tomorrow will be the last one. And then tomorrow we're going to be covering, we didn't do the weather. So we'll do weather tomorrow. And then we'll do, tomorrow will be weather day, really, because that's really the distinction between Pro and Pro Plus, is Pro Plus gives you the animated weather as well as the TFR's AirMets, SIGMETs, which are kind of these specialized NOTAMs, notice to airmen or notice to air missions that are weather related. I'll give you a quick preview of that. Pro Plus and AirMets, SIGMETs. When I was a pilot, this was really like, I took a broad brush for weather, and I was always looking at the AirMets, SIGMETs to see if I was going to have to deal with some, weather that I had to be really paying attention to. And as far as I know, let me turn off these traces. This is the only source for 3D AirMets, SIGMETs that exists is SkyGlass. So super fun here. I love it. You can obviously see the high levels for the convective SIGMETs. We get turbulence, get some IFR areas on the bottom. Anyway, you can kind of really quickly see, what the flight levels are for these major weather areas. And we've got some volcanic ash SIGMETs. Okay, so we're going to leave it there unless there's any more questions. Give my voice a rest, or else I won't have one tomorrow. Really appreciate everybody being here today. Let me stop the sharing so I can see all your faces. There we go. Awesome. Feel free to drop any comments in the chat window. This recording will be up tomorrow morning. I put up yesterday's recording as well. And if you saw in the email blast that I put out today, the AI does this recording and then transcribes it, puts it in a nice outlined list so you can actually pop directly to that section. So I'll do the same thing just for the SkyGlass community. Those aren't available for YouTube, but I will put those out via email. So if you want to go back and review a specific section, it's a real fast way to do it. Anyway, thank you so much. I really encourage everybody that finds value in the Pro and the Pro Plus level to subscribe. And I also didn't mention, we do have a small Patreon community. If you want sort of super early access, I publish some of the coming features and give some of those folks a little early bird access to the beta versions. Also join a Discord if you want to communicate with us there or get some otherwise great support from folks like Thomas and Ren, super helpful. Anyway, I know that Eric's been over there. A few other folks have had some good Discord experience. Got about 1,000 folks over in Discord, so it's great. Anyway, unless there's anything else, we will see you mañana. All right, take care, everybody. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Thank you.
See you later.
You bet.